Hello, my name is Jared Wilson, and welcome to my EDL 879 ePortfolio Final. To kind of get started on my ePortfolio Final, it breaks down for the program information, highlights some of the resources that I used as I was able to put forth my ePortfolio, go in, get extra feedback, things like that way to communicate with my peers as well as my instructor. Looking at my candidate info contents, the first thing I'd like to bring up is our artifact folder. This is where I was able to kind of stack all of the resources and the documents that I needed to kind of show those activities that I completed. It was kind of challenging getting each of the activities to fit quite right. It was kind of like a jigsaw puzzle piece. Once I had everything in this folder, it did make a big difference. I kind of fought it, and I didn't realize that just adhering to this folder made a significant difference in how I was able to put those activities in, those photo book methods, if you will, just to kind of illustrate the activities that I was participating in. So I've got those listed here. Next up is the program completion timeline. This is just a quick shot of how quickly the program kind of came and went. Something that I really enjoyed was being able to capture where I really started my love for coaching and for teaching, and where I wanted to progress from being a teacher to an administrator. Next up is our goals. So what do we want to do with our lives? What do we want to do educationally? What do we, where do we see ourselves in the future? This is a great piece. Anytime I'm able to reflect on my work, reflect on what I'm doing, really reflect on life, I think it's a positive thing. It's beneficial. It's something that I encourage with all types of, educational practices as well, whether it's coaching, whether it's teaching, is being able to reflect on what you're doing, set a goal, and determine how you want to get to that goal. Breaking down the leadership philosophy, this is the number one thing that I wanted to make sure I shared in this video. I struggle with the idea that we've been providing education for so many years, yet we're still finding so many issues and so many obstacles that we're constantly trying to overcome. And so sometimes whenever I think about my, who's had the most influence on me, I feel like most people want to look at the most ancient information they can. What's been out there for forever? What's been out there that's been, used before? And so I like the idea of this opportunity to kind of research who I really like, who I think fit my leadership style, how those styles play a role in what I do on a daily basis. And Hamish Brewer is who I really wanted to highlight as my leadership philosophy, just because his big thing is to disrupt the norm. He's trying to do something different for kids. And growing up, I wasn't a fan of school. I didn't like it. I struggled. I still, to this day struggle. But I'm trying to make schools an environment where kids want to be, because when all those kids want to be there, the chances of learning is greatly improved. I really believe that if you're able to build those relationships and you are able to foster an environment where kids want to just be there, you're going to have a lot more educational opportunities than having kiddos that just don't want to be there, regardless of their abilities. Next step is my plan of study. I won't go over too much in detail. I started in June, July of last year, continued through, tried not to take any breaks, and hopefully we'll end in this July to finish up. Here's my resume. I kind of enjoyed this opportunity to kind of make a new resume. Anytime you go back to school, anytime you're able to increase, your knowledge, how useful you are to people. This resume is a great way to do that. I've changed positions from being a teacher to an athletic director and assistant principal. It's been a tremendous change, a very difficult change. The work is very different. The perspective is very different, but something that I'm working towards and I'm eager towards. I'm just trying to learn so that it is not quite a struggle while I'm kind of learning the ropes and getting better. Righty. So breaking down my activities, the first activity I'd like to introduce is the annotated bibliography. This is a great opportunity to really dive into my own research. It was nice being able to go through the program and have research provided for me, but sometimes I felt like there was maybe some pieces that I was missing that I just didn't quite get answered with the resources that were at hand. And sometimes I just wanted to be able to venture out. This annotated bibliography gave me that opportunity to where we were able to look more for a question, find our own resources, evaluate different sources, decide whether I'm not wanting that one or why I don't think it's good, but then also being able to take that information and view that information as a useful piece of, or a useful tool for in the future was extremely beneficial. I see where this practice easily connects to the practice that I've seen in a building as a teacher when I've had a principal come by and say, hey, you know what, I think this strategy would really help you. I just read about this, and they're able to give me an article. And I see now that just that constant ability to be able to research something, develop something, know that it has strong significance, and be able to share that information and know that it's useful is extremely important. And so while I didn't recognize it then, after finishing the annotated bibliography, I started to see that connection and how important that is. The activity component tracker was a great tool. I like that I was able to connect to make sure I established all of my 22 standards. It was visually easy to follow. It made it very easy and organized. I know at the beginning I had kind of gone through and I started checking everything and it kind of became cluttered. So learning how to use this tool to make sure I was effectively matching all my other resources to identify, that I made sure I had this activity for this many hours. Once I cleared it out and resubmitted my information, it was extremely beneficial. Breaking down the different slideshows that I have with my presentation. Here's my district slideshow. My favorite activity right here is this community and external leadership. This really gave me a great opportunity to look at the community, look at the districts around, compare it to my district, and really work with finding out how we're different and just evaluating what's better. Are the schools around us, the districts around us having better practices? What do we have that makes us better? And just kind of taking a comparative stance and evaluating to see whether or not we are, we're doing what research is saying is best for kids and best for our community. Moving on to the elementary artifact. I had a ton. I would love to be an elementary administrator. So I had a ton of different ones that I really liked. The first one is summer school. I did a huge summer school program. It ended up being about 4 weeks long. I was able to build it from the ground up. We had one last year. It was a little bit different with COVID, so it was kind of starting brand new again. I was able to develop classes, to work with teachers, work with organizing, work with building the schedules. This was by far one of the most independent and beneficial or I shouldn't say just beneficial, but inclusive activities that I worked on in this entire e-portfolio. I really enjoyed this. It made me struggle, but it also made me grow, which was phenomenal. This next step is right here. This was the PLC leadership activities. It was kind of neat. We had PLC in the past. those had kind of went away from some of the negative effects that, just the processes we had had before wasn't very effective. So I was kind of tasked with the opportunity to go through, learn more about PLC, start implementing some PLC strategies, some leadership strategies, communicate with my staff, but try to do it in a way that was inclusive, supportive, and it was not going to detour teachers. So I took that approach. I was able to do that. One thing I did was I call it the PLC leadership walkthrough, where essentially I am going through. I have my group of teachers. I go through. I evaluate them, do walkthrough just like an evaluator would. But at the same time, they're doing the same thing, and it provides a lot of collaboration between all of the walkthroughs that are taking place. As a leader, I was facilitating that. I was demonstrating what that looked like. And being the leader, I got the opportunity to really walk through and observe almost every single person in my building. And that made a tremendous impact on myself as a teacher and as a leader, just to see how differently people are teaching and how much of an impact people are having in ways that I couldn't have perceived prior to that. Looking at this secondary level activity artifact, the first thing that I want to highlight that I really liked was the moral compass and just this ethical decision making process. I really liked how they are, or I shouldn't say they, but how educators are really moving towards a model that demonstrates for students what ethical decision making should look like, not just expecting them to know how to do it or expecting them to gain those skills from home, but explicitly teaching those skills, showing them what it looks like, modeling it, and then providing things like the moral compass image I have on the right, with those visuals so that they can see how to make a process out of making ethical decisions, because it isn't something that just comes natural. There's natural components, but you can really break it down to a system, which I think is good for kids and good for demonstrating for kids. I treat it just like I would my writing, my math. I think you need to model before you can expect those kiddos to do that. The next artifact or activity that I really enjoyed in this slideshow was the interview component. I sat on in as many interviews as I possibly could. I was given the opportunity to run some of the interviews. As an athletic director, I'm also interviewing for coaches and different positions. So anytime admin's away or if our principal is out, being the AP, I can step in. I do the same process. I'm constantly in the hiring process, and something that I truly enjoyed. It was one of my favorite things really to do as a leader, was being able to decide how a new person's going to impact the school. See, that evaluation process is how can that person sell them to me so that I can figure out where they fit in this puzzle piece of school. And, it was just a very interesting piece of information that I wouldn't have got without being able to participate and engage in this type of activity. The verification forms, I was lucky enough, I've got tons of people around me that I'm able to work with, collaborate with, and really gain a strong sense of ethical leadership and just well-rounded leadership is another great way to put that. Looking at the e-portfolio program reflection, obviously I don't want to break this completely down, but the biggest question that I had for this was basically how does an individual become the strongest leader they can? Whether it is just practicing new skills, or if it is identifying those strengths and then strengthening your strengths, or eliminating your weaknesses, avoiding your weaknesses. It's kind of a perplexing idea to wonder, how do I become the most effective evaluator or teacher? How do you do that? And I think there's a balance between having to learn those new skills and what science and what educators are saying works, as well as determining what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and how can you use both of those at the same time. I do think it's a balance, but it's also kind of a theoretical question to decide what avenue you would like to go. Where do you put most of your effort to really be as supportive and as effective as possible? Overall, I I just with the program, I cannot be happy enough. I felt like all the work I did has had an impact on me as a leader. It didn't feel like busy work, but it gave me an opportunity to be better now than I was a year ago,